Sorry for the delay. After an hour and a half of closed session dealing with some issues, when we get done with y'all, we're going to go back and have another half hour or so and see if we can get to the end of doing the right things. So, Joe, the conclusion is we have nothing to report, right? Okay. We didn't get to the end of it, so we don't have anything to report at this moment in life. And then now, do we have an invocation speaker? We don't. Yeah. God, thank you for all the things that you have you've helped this council accomplish. And thank you for the help of the staff. And most especially, thank you for the help of the community who has brought so many opportunities to the council and helped in so many ways. And I feel that this partnership that you have helped us on the council and the staff and the community bring together is the perfect way that we can improve our community. And personally, I want to thank you, God, and ask your help in the future, because it's been all good things. Thank you. Amen. And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pleasure to turn the microphone on. It was my pleasure on September 24th to read a proclamation on behalf of the city at the 75th anniversary of the Veterans Memorial Building. And if you have not had an opportunity to go over there and take a walk through, it's open pretty much every day, and it is truly beautiful. And for those people around here who remember it as very young children when it was built, they tell me that it's as pretty as it ever was. And now I have a proclamation to present. And let me go over here and we'll get everybody up front. And I need Cosetta Blow, our victim advocate from the Lompoc Police Department. And I need nobody else is here? But you sent me this nice email.
I know.
Okay, well, the important person is here. And for those of you that don't know this young lady, she is the heart and soul of domestic violence solutions for our police department. And she does an outstanding job. And before we do a proclamation, let's do a thank you. Okay. I think I'm going to catch something, so there might be a couple coughs in this. She's standing further away. Proclamation for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas historically and presently, women have been and continue to be the victims of intimate partner violence, and the crime of domestic violence is not confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, and social groups. And whereas one woman every 15 seconds is assaulted in America by her spouse or cohabitant, usually causing physical injury, violating her privacy, leaving her bankrupt of self-respect and dignity, and resulting in an imprint of fear. And whereas children are emotionally abused by witnessing family violence, many growing up to repeat the pattern in the next generations, as the next generation's abusers or victims, and whereas 1 in 3 teenagers report that violence is part of their dating relationship, and whereas the Lompoc Police Department's victim advocate position has been providing vital advocacy service for battered women and their children for the past 14 years, and whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month is aimed at focusing community-wide attention on battered women and promotes the support of shelters and other programs which serve them, and whereas the Lompoc Police Department has requested the partnership of all residents, all of you, in the Lompoc, Vandenberg Village, Mission Hills, and Vandenberg Air Force Base in helping to accomplish the total elimination of domestic violence in all of our communities. Now, therefore, I, John H. Lynn, Mayor of the City of Lompoc, California, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2011 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And I do personally ask each of you to intervene when you can and seek help when you can't.
Thank you, Mayor Lynn, and thank you to the council members. I really appreciate the acknowledgement of this such an important proclamation, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The Lompoc Police Department and the many service agencies that we partner with are so dedicated, very, very dedicated to eradicating this horrible and senseless crime within our communities. And today, I just would like to invite each and every one of you to take a stand with us simply by saying no to tolerance of violence within your homes, within your neighborhoods, and within our communities. You just need to remember that no one has to do everything, but everyone absolutely has to do something. Thank you.
And now the City Administrator's Executive Director status report with the most exciting news.
Mayor, Council, audience, and viewers, while there are no status items to report tonight, there's good news, and that is that the Governor recently signed the rodent eradication bill, the AB 634, and it's effective January 1st, 2012. So with this bill in place, staff will move forward to procure the verminator to eradicate gophers in our city parks. Thank you.
And if any of you out there are seeking a new business opportunity, having now chatted with several of my neighbors who have vermin they like to verminate, $100 seems like a good price to everybody to come over and gas their yard. So if you're currently looking for a new business, here's an opportunity, and I would love to talk to you about it. And based on statistical research, it is estimated that we have 10,000 gophers beneath our parks, and we look forward to bringing that number down into at least under 100. I think we can't accomplish it all, and I know personally I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to go out and stick the wand in the ground the first time out. If any of you would like to volunteer in that effort, we are looking for some help with regard to that. And oral communication, your opportunity to come and talk to us about any subject. If the item is on the agenda and you can stay, we'd prefer to have your testimony when we bring the item up, but if you can't stay or you have a different item, come on down.
Ken Ostini, Lompoc resident and CEO of Lompoc Valley Chamber of Commerce, just to provide you some updates on some things going on within the chamber. Mr. Mayor, council members, 2 programs kicked off here in September, big programs. Youth Leadership Lompoc Valley had their retreat on 17 September. It was a good weekend. We have 9 kids this year, small number for different reasons, but next year we'll get that back up to probably 18 or 20. First topic day for them is the 17th of October, which is Agriculture Day. And then on the 17th of November, we'll have our chamber luncheon where they'll be introduced to the community. So hopefully we'll get that word and some of you can attend that. Also, the leadership of Lompoc Valley had their kickoff team building weekend the 16th of September. And on the 24th, they had their kickoff banquet where they were introduced to the community. There's 12 members in that program right now, so I'm sure you're all familiar with that. So I just some brief detail on that one. Real quickly, on the 20th of October, our own Teresa Galvan will be the guest speaker at our chamber luncheon. So we're looking forward to that, and we're putting details together for that, and it's going to be at the Jetty Restaurant this year. Also, I'm working with Chief Dabney. We're looking to put on a business members forum for businesses preparing for the holidays, concerns about possible shoplifting, theft, customer fraud, to help businesses look at those things, understand what might be going on, so that hopefully do that in the middle of September. We haven't established a date yet, but we're working the details of that as we speak. So that's it, unless you have questions for me.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Lingle.
Mr. Ostini, I just want to thank you for your monthly updates. They've been very informative, and we appreciate you coming and doing them for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, please.
You can tell Mr. Ostini is taller than I. I am David Grill. I live in Lompoc. If the council members recall the last campaigning season, always we heard, and still hear people saying that they want good-paying jobs, and we all say to them, or you said to them, that you're doing the best you can to bring good-paying jobs here. And during that campaign, my response was, we have good-paying jobs here. We just don't train our own children well enough to secure them. And I talked about building a nurse factory. Well, it turns out, as far as I can understand, Lompoc High School has done it. They've built something. They've created something. I'm not quite sure what it is. I call it a nursing academy. I'm sure they call it something different, like Health Science Careers Academy. It is an academy, and it is recognized by the county. And I think it's very good, and it's very exciting. There's lots of really good things that can happen, and it makes me good because I think there aren't too many times in this town that something really exciting, good, potentially changing happens. And this is one. But I have a frustration in that I know almost nothing about it. Lompoc High School, or the school board, has been entirely silent. The only thing that I've seen from the high school is the biology department issued a little tiny blurb in a Lompoc Record that said, if you want to inspect our textbook, it's in the library. And that's what set me off. And I've talked to someone in the biology department. I've talked to the main instructor. I've talked to someone in the the county and I just said the word, the controlling people that
ROP.
ROP, yes. The ROP, I talked to ROP person, but I haven't seen a curriculum. I know that they start in sophomore year, junior year, senior year, but what's their goal? What is it that they want to achieve? What I want them to achieve is to take over registered nursing jobs in Lompoc Hospital. That is a goal that I believe is worthy. But there could be other goals. And I don't know what they might be, but I'd sure like to know, because this is too important to let it fail. There needs to be coordination with Lompoc Hospital and the Convalescent Care Center, Comprehensive Care Center it's now called. There needs to be coordination with Hancock College. Suppose the purpose of this program was to feed students into the Lompoc Unified School District adult education program only. Well, that's not what I want. I want our students to be fed to the adult student academy, or I mean the adult school, or Hancock, or Santa Barbara City College, we all have to talk to each other. I learned that this a long time ago in systems engineering, is when you have a big system like this whole valley, and one little unit of it, like Lompoc High School or Lompoc Unified School District, if they decide to do something brand new and don't talk to all the other ingredients, there's a real good chance they'll fail. And this is much too important to let them fail. So we need to be informed first and involved second. And we need to make sure that everybody's talking to each other. So I'm very enthusiastic about the program. I'm very happy they've taken this step, but I can't understand at all why it's a big secret. So I appeal to you to use your good offices to pull away, make apocalypse or revelation, or pull away the curtain so we can see what's going on, so that we can help them. That's all. That's all I have.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
After David chatted the other day with the principal at the Lompoc Adult Ed, she called me up because several of us were at their nurse's graduation recently, and allowed us how she'd love to come and share it with us. So I'm wondering, City Administrator, if it's okay with the council, if we could ask the folks from the school district to come and let us in on all their various programs. Is that okay with everybody? Because I agree with David. She was telling me that the LVN graduates from the class, they have 100% pass rate, and they go out and start at $25 an hour, which is surely a good job. So thank you very much. And next, please.
Carol Benham, Lompoc resident. Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I intended to come here tonight and ask that you move some of the discussion regarding LHCDC into the public arena. I wanted to remind you, Mr. Mayor, that in February you said there would be a public workshop. But now that we have litigation, I understand that's going to be a little harder to do. I'm sure that you know that Pacific Western Bank has taken title to a specific number of, receivership of a certain number of their properties that they hold first mortgage. The Santa Barbara Superior Court website, however, lists the case number 1389106, and it says on the website that the city of Lompoc and the county are both defendants. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's true. I only know what I see on the website. I assume if the city is being sued, I assume at some point the council will let us know. But eventually there must be a point where the public's right to know is upheld, and we can get some facts and not have to continue with such whispering campaigns of disinformation and inaccurate charges. So instead, what I want to talk to you tonight is about asking the 5 of you on this dais who sought and received the public's trust to ensure this nightmare, this train wreck, whatever you want to call it, can't happen again, by putting into place very clear policies and procedures that ensure all state, federal, and city regulations are monitored and enforced. Policies and procedures that can't be ignored, no matter who sits up here. Policies and procedures that will require the council to be informed of violations and noncompliance issues, and mandate a vote in public of 3 council members to ignore or waive the noncompliance issues and the requirements for any organization. There are 3 very clear issues where LHCDC has been non-compliant with both federal, state regulations and the city's own contracts. And there is documentation consistently. I have acres of it that shows that at least some city staff informed the council of noncompliance issues. Every time that happened, there was a chance to stop the train wreck, but it didn't happen. I'm not going to quibble about whether an audit is required or whether it's a financial report or whether it's a financial statement. Clearly, something was required. It hasn't happened since 2006, and I can't tell you that any nonprofit that asks for as little as $5,000 from the Human Services Commission has to submit an audit. Excuse me.
Hey, Carol.
Yes.
If I could say what you said, council, and I know that you know that these issues occurred some time ago.
Mr. Mayor, I know you know that, and I actually think most of the public knows that. And you can start finding these issues back in 2004.
Yes.
Okay, affordability covenants, they violated, and I'm not going to talk about that now. I'm going to talk about that when College Park comes up. Building standards. LHCD's buildings haven't met federal regulations, even local building codes, or sometimes even state health and safety codes, and that's been allowed to continue for years. 2 weeks ago, the Housing Authority moved a Section 8 tenant out of an LHCDC building because the unit couldn't pass its regularly scheduled annual inspection. The building received multiple sources of funding, including city funds, with the intent to create permanent, affordable housing for the mentally disabled. Mentally disabled. I'm happy to report to you that this tenant, an elderly woman, has been relocated, and she'll no longer have to live with mold and wander around spraying Clorox on her apartment because of a leaking roof. The city was informed of that in 2010. The city was informed of that in February 12th, 2009, April 21st, 2009, July 9th, 2009.
You got another 30 seconds because I interrupted you.
The city was informed of that and many other things, boarded windows, windows taped with plastic, stairwells falling down, open and exposed personal mailboxes. None of this is acceptable. With all due, Mr. Pannoni's job is to protect the city, and I appreciate that. I understand that. With all due respect to Mr. Pannoni, the public placed their trust in your hands, not his. The public trust is yours to uphold or to lose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could I take the floor?
Councilman Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would really like to thank Ms. Benham for her testimony. And I want to point it out that some of the dates that she mentioned were not dates of previous councils. I mean, Councilmember Lingle and I have been sitting here since 2008. And we perhaps heard those, or perhaps was not even brought up to the council, and we can talk about particularly which ones or whatever, but some of those reports did not make it to this dais, and I have an issue with that. They should have made it to this dais. The other issue that I have with it is that even if some non-compliance report came up to the dais, the staff didn't necessarily inform and educated the council as to what the potential consequences were. So I totally agree with Ms. Benham that we need to put a policy in place where it doesn't matter who is up here, the law is going to be enforced, and the city staff will follow the regulations. So thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Terry Hammonds, Lompoc. Well, on the heels of that, let's get into where we're going with this. Preservation. What's the City Council done about that? There was a presentation in this chamber in 2005, September of 2005. There was a report given to the city called the Historic Resources Survey and Planning Analysis. very detailed report. It identified all the historic buildings within the city. It also identified the historic district, a mile square around the Ocean area. The mayor referred to an individual who addressed the Chamber of Commerce in 2009. That was at the September 6th council meeting. That lady's name was McVicker. She's been to this city 3 times to address preservation issues, twice to the council and once to the chamber. I would like this council to bring back that report, review that report, and see what parts or all of it we can start implementing to do this preservation. The other thing, and in this handout I gave you, it goes back and it details the September 20th meeting in 2005, the November 1st meeting in 2005, and then there was a follow-up where Cindy McCall referred to a support implement certain components of Old Town Strategic Plan. Now, I don't know exactly what part of that may have had to do with this preservation, but it is in the minutes of the meetings of the City Council. The next thing I would like to do, besides this preservation, is have this council come back to the issue of proactive code enforcement. Now, you're going to say, well, we have a complaint-driven system here. Well, I talked to the code enforcement officer in Memphis, Tennessee, and they have a very solid proactive code enforcement. And all their public aid programs are involved with the inspections by their code enforcement officers. So that issues such as what Ms. Benham brought up are not swept away and put away. They're identified and they're dealt with by the city. Now you can say, well, we don't have the funds for this and we don't have that and we don't have this. Well, that's true. We don't have anything to do these things with because that's always the excuse. And I don't think that's a really legitimate excuse. I think Mr. Boggs can find time to be proactive in the code enforcement in the city, and I think probably code enforcement could do as good a job in being proactive as they do responding to the complaints. But that's up to the council. The third thing I would like to have this council come back and look at is the parking ordinances that address oversized vehicles on public streets. It's been a year now since 3 of the members have been elected on this council. I don't see that. It has not improved in the city at all. There was a proposal to bring an unhitched trailer ordinance to the council, and well, it disappeared somewhere into somebody's file, and that's the end of it. There was a workshop that that addressed parking, but then it never went anywhere. So I'm asking the council, let's address preservation, code enforcement, and parking, and let's see where economic development goes with this. Maybe Ms. Gallivan would appreciate having some support in cleaning up the city. I can't imagine that I would want to be in charge of a city that has a lot of issues, and I think they are issues, and I think you can help her with her job. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you. Terry, there weren't enough copies of what you presented. Would you be able to get me one later? Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Please.
Good evening, Mayor Lynn and council members. My name is Trina Long, and I'm representing the Tobacco Prevention Settlement Program of the county's Public Health Department. And I'm here tonight to present you with the results of recent undercover tobacco buy operations in the city of Lompoc. Recently, we collaborated with your police department and local youth to survey the tobacco retailers here in the city. The survey is an important tool for us to assess whether or not store clerks are following the law and not selling tobacco to youth. Our program has been conducting these types of surveys for many years in the past, but this year we were able to provide a small mini grant to the police department to pay for the officers' time in the undercover operation. And we're very grateful to work with the police department this year and the fine officers. During the survey, a 16-year-old decoy attempted to purchase tobacco products at various locations. 29 total retailers were surveyed, and unfortunately 31%, or 9 out of the 29, sold tobacco to the decoy. If you refer to the chart that I provided in the blue, you can see that over the last 4 years, the illegal sales rate in the city of Lompoc has steadily increased. The rate went from 0% in 2008 to 3% in 2009, up to 14% in 2010, and now we're looking at 31% this year. So obviously, this trend is concerning to our department, and we wanted to bring this to your attention as well. I've also provided a chart on the second page that compares the illegal sales rate of each city in the county, and that's over the last 3 years. So in comparison, you can see that the city of Lompoc is the only city in our county with the sales rates increasing over the years. Additionally, the rate is significantly higher than the state rate, which is about 6 to 7%.
I'm sorry, what was that?
6 to 7%.
6 to 7.
Statewide. Okay. So I do apologize for being the bearer of bad news tonight. I know this is the first opportunity that I've had to meet many of you and to kind of my first introduction to you. But I do want to let you know that there are various tools and resources that are available to help you address this issue if you so desire. And the Public Health Department is willing to work with you in that manner if you wish. I would like to thank the Police Department for supporting our efforts this year and for working with us. And also I'd like to say a big thank you to those 20 retailers here in Lompoc who actually followed the law and checked the ID of the decoy and made sure that they did not allow the cigarettes to get in the hands of the minor. Once the survey was concluded, we sent letters of recognition to those businesses so they do know who they are, and we really do truly appreciate them. The Public Health Department is going to be releasing this data to the media this week, but I wanted to share it with you in advance, and I hope that we can continue to collaborate with the Police Department and also, just looking at down the line how we can reduce youth accessing tobacco in Lompoc. Thank you.
Excuse me. Could I ask a question?
Yes.
I'm speaking for myself, but I believe I'll probably be speaking for the entire City Council. We'd very much like you to share this information with us, that you say you have tools that we can work on this. The information is very shocking, and I'm sorry you had to be the bearer of bad news, but it's something we had to know. So I want to thank you for that, but please share the information with us. We'd love to become more proactive on this.
Okay. I can leave my business card here, and there's some, okay. I can email some information at your request.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go away.
Okay.
Councilor Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you again for bringing this information. This is extremely alarming. I don't want to take up too much time here during the oral communications period of this meeting, but I was just curious, statistics, of course, we need to be a little bit careful with them, and right. That I'm assuming the sample size, we see the sample size change, and then I didn't know if the way you chose that sample as a random sample, or were the same stores surveyed each year, or was there a process that changed that may have affected the results? Is there a variance? Do we really believe that 31% is the actual true and correct percent, or do we see a variance in that amount?
Right. So for each city, there is the sample size is random. Depending on funding, we try to shop at least 50% of the stores each time, but that doesn't always happen. I did put the amounts here so you can see that in 2008, 34 stores were shopped in Lompoc, 41 were shopped in 2009, 29 in 2010, and 29 this year. So that is just a sample of the retailers that you have here. When you look at the countywide chart, it can be a little deceiving because it's based on percentages, and the cities don't have the same number of retailers. So you see, like, Solvang looks really bad at 50%, but Solvang only has 4 retailers. So 2 sold, which gave them a 50% illegal sales rate. So in that regard, we do have to be careful when we're looking at this graph to know what the sample size was.
But you believe 31% is a true representation of the city as a whole? Usually there's a statistical variance of, because it's a random sample, what the range could be, and do we believe that 31% is the true and accurate percentage in the city of Lompoc?
It was this year, but as you can tell, it fluctuates. So does it mean that next year it's going to go up? No. Does it mean that it'll be lower? We don't know. It's going to, again, depend on the sample. It's going to depend on the decoy that we use. We try to use, like I said, a 16-year-old that looks their age. The protocols that we use are always the same, and they've been tried over the years. So there's a statistical significance in the protocols that we use, but it's a lot of it is up to the clerk and the training that they've received.
Thank you.
Do they get a ticket for doing it?
A what?
Do they get a ticket for selling to a minor?
Yes. So when we work with the law enforcement officers, they do provide a citation at the time, and it's a misdemeanor offense.
Rightfully so. Councilmember Martiner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make a request to the city administrator regarding this matter, and that is if the police department could generate a memo on how is the police department in-house addressing this issue. And what I mean by that is there any historical data or anything that the police department, the Lompoc Police Department, is doing about this? And if we could be provided with a memo that is, of course, available to the public, I'll appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody comfortable with Councilmember Martiner's request? Okay, good. Thank you. Next. Seeing no one rise, we'll close oral communication. And you didn't get up very fast. Come on down.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Joyce Howerton, Lompoc. Sitting back there listening to a couple of the comments earlier about LHCDC, and, it was the old council that actually took action, I think, and foreclosed on 2 properties that LHCDC had. But this council's, you've been here for a year, and there has been consistent concerns and issues brought up. And I'm a little confused on who owns the property and what's been foreclosed on and what belongs to who, because I understand, Mayor Lynn, that you've gone out and talked to a number of groups about taking over some of the properties. And does the city own those properties now? Or that to me is very confusing. And I think in the community it's very confusing because people don't understand who's got some, an oar in this water and what's going on with it. And I think that would be good to clarify that to the community. And I think it's interesting, all the years I've sat at this city council and all the years that I have sat out in the audience and had LHCDC come to the city council and ask for money and almost always got it granted, and yet I never see him here now. Where are those people? And one last thing I wanted to say, Ron Fink's column this morning talked about this issue, and a lot of the old friends of LHCDC are now distancing themselves from it. But he said this has been an ongoing issue, and it's been the liberals and the conservatives. And I'm sorry, that is so simplistic. It's not about liberals, and it's not about conservative. It's about people who have followed this issue, paid attention, did their homework, and asked questions for years. For years, people in this community, liberal, conservative, apolitical, have gotten up and said, what is going on? What is happening with this issue? So I hope you don't fall into that mindset that it's a certain group, because I can guarantee you everybody in this community is looking at this issue and waiting to see what the city council does. Thank you.
Just so I think everyone is clear on this, that the council has been involved in this issue with our attorney since February of this year, And back at that time, the decision was made to let the attorney and the city staff work with the county on a resolution to this. So you haven't heard us talk about it because that was given off to them. And they've been working in that direction since then. Obviously, if you read the paper, some things have changed recently. Councilman Partner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to confirm what the mayor has said. This council has given direction to our legal counsel and the city administrator to work on this issue. And they are the points of contact. Now, here there is a public comment that is being made that the mayor has been contacting organizations. My understanding for what this council direction was is that it is the legal counsel and the city administrator that have the authority to contact organizations and be the liaison between the city and those organizations, and not the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, just to respond to that, I've contacted various organizations and encouraged them to talk to our legal counsel and become involved if they were interested in helping solve the problem. So I was not negotiating with them. I was simply encouraging them to come forward if they wanted to help solve the problem. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Going? Going? Gone. Okay. Moving right along. We'll come to the consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar that a council member would like to have pulled off at this time? Seeing no lights, I would accept a motion to approve the consent calendar. I don't know which one you got there first. Councilmember Lingle?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept the consent calendar. Or approve it.
And a second.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent calendar. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, could we vote, please? And that passes 5-0. And now we have appointments. And the first one is an appointment to the Library Board of Trustees serving the Buellton area, which it would be Buellton City Councilwoman Judith Dale, for a term that expires on 1/2012. And I did have occasion to speak to the prior appointee, another Buellton City Council member who had to withdraw from it because the meetings were scheduled earlier in the day and it conflicted with her work schedule. She asked me to thank the council and say she had enjoyed her time on the library board and recommended Councilmember Dale highly. So I would accept a motion for that nomination. Councilmember Costa.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
And any discussion? Could we vote on that, please? And that passes 5-0. And the next one is an appointment to the Youth Commission for a term also expiring in January of 2012 for Rosalie Redrick. Is there anyone here? Is Rosalie, are you here? No. Is there anyone on the dais that could speak to Rosalie or has anything to say? Nope. Okay. I'd accept a motion on behalf of Rosalie. Councilmember Starbuck?
So moved.
And a second?
Sounds like she took the initiative, so second.
And is there any further discussion on this? And can we vote, please? And that passes 5-0. And that handles those. City Clerk, do we have any more vacancies that are at-large vacancies currently other than the Mobile Home Rent Stabilization Commission? If you know off the top of your head, we could announce them. Go ahead. Yeah, why don't you announce those just so people are aware that those opportunities are at hand?
There is one vacancy with term ending December 2012 on the Beautification and Appearance Commission to be nominated by Councilmember Lingle. There is one at-large term ending January of 2012 in the Mobile Home Rent Stabilization Board. There's also one park owner representative term ending January 2014 and one tenant representative term ending January 2014 for the Mobile Home Rent Stabilization Board. And there's one at-large term ending January of 2012 on the Oversight Committee for Park Maintenance and Pool Assessment District. So if anyone is interested, please feel free to apply with the city clerk.
Councilmember Lingle.
Mr. Mayor, in addition to that, last evening I received information. I have not received the resignation yet, but I have received information that I will be receiving a resignation from a safety commissioner. So if there's anyone interested in serving on the Public Safety Commission, they can contact the city clerk as well.
Okay. And now, unfinished business, item 7. Street closure for the annual Lompoc Valley Children's Holiday Parade and consideration of renaming the parade the Lompoc Valley Christmas Parade. And Joanne Plummer.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, audience at home, and here this evening. Tonight we are discussing the street closure for the annual Lompoc Valley Children's Holiday Parade and consideration of renaming the parade the Lompoc Valley Christmas Parade. At the council meeting on September 20th, council requested postponing the approval of the street closures for the annual parade, designating the activity as a city-sponsored event, and adopting the resolution in order to gather public input on a possible name change of the event. So tonight we ask council to determine whether to change the name of the parade back to the Lompoc Valley Children's Christmas Parade, and if the decision is to rename the parade, then the council direct appropriate interlineations be made to the resolution to reflect that change, and then adopt the change resolution 5744 parent 11, authorizing city personnel to secure the encroachment permit from Caltrans for temporary closures of portions of North H and East Ocean Avenue for the subject parade and designate this activity as a city-sponsored event. Or the City Council adopt resolution number 5744 parent 11, authorizing city personnel to secure the encroachment permit from Caltrans for temporary closure of portions of North H Street and East Ocean Avenue for the annual Lompoc Valley Children's Holiday Parade and designate this activity as a city-sponsored event. So, I know you're looking forward to a lot of discussion, so that's all I have for you unless you have any questions for me at this time.
Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Plummer, in the renaming the parade, in your first paragraph, it talks about the possibility of conveying a message, City Council conveying a message. It's the third from the last paragraph?
Yes.
Okay. Possible conveying a message of either endorsement or disapproval of religious belief. When people apply for a permit to be in the parade, do we have anything in there that indicates that there should not, or should not be anything of a religious nature?
Nothing of a religious nature is specified. The Christmas parade, holiday parade, the parade is designed to include everybody, and everybody submits their application and actually will give us a description of their application so we know what's going to be on their float and make sure that it's appropriate for the parade and the audience that we're serving. There is no specific rule to say yes to this, no to this, except we only have one Santa Claus at the end because of the confusion that it creates with the young audience that are watching the parade.
Okay, thank you. And then in the next paragraph, I have a question on there. It says, why or what do we do to favor any religion? Has the city ever conveyed a message that would arguably be viewed as favoring one religion over another?
To my knowledge, no.
Okay.
We do have a variety of faith-based churches in town that do submit a float entry, and they decorate their float, and as long as it's in good taste and it is respectful for, again, our audience that's watching the parade, then it's included in the parade.
Okay. And then also in that same paragraph, these are concerns that we may be endorsing something that may actually be forbidden by the United States Constitution. That is a concern of yours as well, is that correct?
I'm going to defer that one to Mr. Pannoni.
Okay. Well,
that was after seeking legal advice.
Okay, because it is in your report. It says it could easily be perceived as an endorsement of the Christian faith, which is forbidden by the United States and the California Constitution. So obviously this would be a concern of ours, is from what I'm getting out of that. Is that correct? Okay. So my question is, I got this off the internet. If you look at the city website, look at the county website, you look at the state of California website, you look at the United States federal government website, and you look at the Supreme Court of the United States, their website, all of them recognize Christmas as a holiday. That tells me that it would be very difficult for anyone, the federal government or anyone, to say that we have a Christmas parade. If the U.S. Supreme Court is recognizing Christmas as a holiday, it would be very difficult for anyone to tell the city of Lompoc that you cannot recognize Christmas as a holiday. Just a point there. Then I'll leave the other question I have for later because it's going to bring up another point, but thank you for your report.
Councilmember Starbuck. Councilmember Costa. Councilmember Martin. Okay, thank you. And now an opportunity for the public to speak to this subject. Who would like to speak on this subject? Going once. And if you also want to speak, could you rise and come forward, please?
Dwayne Holmdahl, City of Lompoc. Been here a long time. Christmas parade is a Christmas parade. And one of the few councilmen who was here when I first came on, I want to thank Bob for bringing it up. Because when we were told that, and staff kind of left it to saying that, well, it has to be called a holiday parade. And we didn't take the time and effort that Bob did to go back and find out it is. It's a Christmas parade, and it's for the young people, and what we've been talking about is not going to challenge anybody. That I'm real pleased that Bob brought this up. I just really hope council does change it back to Christmas parade.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one rise, we'll close oral communication and come back to council for discussion. Who would like to start?
I will.
Councilmember Lingle.
Since I brought it forward, actually, I will not take the credit for bringing it forward. It was requested of me by a community member to bring it forward. But since I did bring it forward, I will tell you what I've learned since I brought it forward. I found out that, just as Mr. Holmdahl said, it was not an action that was taken by the city council to change it. It was the city staff that decided to change it. There's no indication that there was ever any study done on it. Let me back up just a little bit. I understand that there is some sensitivity in this area. I completely understand that. For that reason, I took the initiative to contact a few people. As the city or staff report says, we live in a very diverse community. It's not hard in this community to find people of different faiths. I sought out co-workers of mine. I sought out people from the Jewish faith, from the Muslim faith, from the Hindu faith. Asked them all. I says, would you be offended if this holiday parade were named the Christmas parade? Without exception, they said no. They said it happens during the Christmas holiday. It is a Christmas parade. Call it what it is. One of the individuals, and I'm sure he won't mind me mentioning his name, Dr. Larry Reamer of the Jewish faith, said, Bob, I will take it forward to a group that I meet with this weekend. So he took it to a group in the Jewish community. He asked a number of them the same question: would you be offended if the city of Lompoc changed the name of the holiday parade to the Christmas parade? Without exception, they said, of course not. We would not mind it. It is a Christmas parade. Call it what it is. One of them indicated, and I'm not saying this, one of them indicated that they're getting tired of people trying to be politically correct. Call it what it is. It's a parade at Christmas time. I went one step further. This is called the Children's Holiday Parade currently. So I asked some children. I said, what do you think of when you think of Christmas? Without exception, they said, we get presents. What else do you think about? Well, Santa Claus comes. Or I said, where do you get the presents? Santa Claus brings us presents. What else do you think of? Well, we eat a lot of candy. Not once did they ever mention anything about religion. They mentioned Santa Claus. They mentioned Christmas trees. They mentioned presents. Christmas is what this event is. It's a Christmas parade. It happens during the Christmas season. Now we'll bring up the other event, or the other thing I was going to bring up when Ms. Plummer was up here. There's another holiday that this nation celebrates, that the city celebrates, that in the Christian faith is much more central to the Christian faith than Christmas, and that's Easter. Guess what happens in the city of Lompoc around Easter time? We have an Easter egg hunt. Are we going to call this the scavenger hunt? I don't know, But Easter is a much more Christian holiday than Christmas is. Are we getting to the point we're going to be changing the Easter egg hunt? I'm glad I brought it forward. I'm glad the person from the community asked me to bring it forward. And I had mentioned it, I think it appeared in the newspaper today. If we had, I said 100 people, but even if we had the majority of people standing up saying, City Council, be sensitive, be reasonable. We do not want this named the Christmas parade. I believe this council would have, and we still may, would have left it called the holiday parade, or if we had the chamber overflowing with people wanting it to be called a Christmas parade. I think we would have honored their wishes. We had only one person stand up. I believe we have all had emails from people. I've had numerous. I know there's been at least one email that was sent to all of us. Every email I received, with the exception of one, I did receive one email from an individual that wanted to remain the holiday parade. But every other email I received was asking us, the City Council, to rename it the Christmas parade. So I leave it to us for further discussion and see what we want to do. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to support you on that, Bob Lingle, because I think, Santa's been riding on one of our fire trucks for years. It's a holiday. It is Christmas. I'm going to go ahead and support it as a Christmas parade. And if the Chamber wanted to change from the annual community tree lighting program to the Christmas tree lighting program, I don't think they'd have a problem either.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Councilmember Lingle, if I can just clarify something really quickly. I think that what I hear what you're saying is that the discussion that we're talking about here is Christmas as a holiday in the general sense, not as a religious ceremony itself.
That is exactly right.
Okay. So, and I understand that, seeing that in our lobby we have In God We Trust, which is much more outright religious than the word Christmas itself, as it is, like you were saying, a holiday not necessarily associated with the Christian faith specifically due to Santa and presents and the tree, etc. Again, but I will state what I said when we discussed this 2 weeks ago, and that I can almost never be in favor of an exclusionary policy. My one concern about bringing this up is that we almost created a divide in the community. And of all the other things that we have going on our plate right now, it's sort of frustrating that we're talking about this. And again, in this day and age, it's a little frustrating for me. I understand why you brought it forth, and I appreciate you doing so for your constituents. because of that, I am willing to compromise in this. And as I mentioned before, the compromise would be leaving in the word holiday. I don't think we want to replace the word holiday because it is also the holiday season for Hanukkah and for Kwanzaa. I guess Ramadan is back in August, so not necessarily that, but for other faiths, it is the holiday season as well. So to try to exclusively make it about the Christmas ceremony for me is somewhat exclusionary. That's why I would like the word holiday is still included. So is it Christmas and holiday? And this isn't me trying to be politically correct necessarily. This is me trying to be non-exclusionary, period. So that's sort of my opinion. That's where I stand on it. I'm not too concerned about the legal issue, seeing as, we have the word God in our, in our facility. But I would not like to seem as though we are making this change in an exclusionary way. Thank you.
Councilmember Martiner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the concerns that I have is, and again, I attempt to try to fix problems. And I like to know, why did the city staff change the name to start with, without necessarily even bringing it to the council? Is there a policy somewhere in place that the city staff makes decisions like this without consulting the council? And if so, why?
I'd be happy to answer that, Councilmember Martiner. Our role is to produce programs for the community that includes everybody. And it was always called the Lompoc Children's Christmas Parade. Started as a daytime parade, gained in popularity, went to a nighttime parade, exploded with enthusiasm. It kept going on, the Lompoc Valley Children's Christmas Parade. At one point, there was actually a council member that was seated that stated their concerns for it being a Christmas parade and not including other faiths in our community. So staff listen, whether it's a council member or a community member, and weigh out the pros and cons and make decisions and move forward. The decision wasn't made to necessarily cause any friction, cause any harm. It's just changing the name of a program to look at a broader base and include everybody, and that's why the decision was made.
That's interesting to know that one council member has that authority. I haven't experienced that authority yet, being one council member here in the dais. So I'm surprised whoever that council member was that had that power. The second question is, let's talk about the legal issues. Is point blank, is there any legal issues?
Through the mayor, there's no case specifically directly identifies and talks about a parade being called a Christmas parade or not. So without giving too much legal input in an open session, I would just say that I was assisting and wrote some of the report, so that's what I think is as I wrote the report.
Well, according to this report, it says that it's forbidden by the United States and California constitutions.
No, it says that
it may be perceived.
Favoring a religion is prohibited. Right. It doesn't say calling this parade a Christmas parade is necessarily favoring a religion.
So if there is a member of the public out there that perceives that a Christmas parade is favoring a specific religion, does that mean that it makes the city liable for a lawsuit? And do they have any grounds?
Because there's no case specifically on point, the question is unanswered.
Okay, thank you. Having learned that, and having learned that I guess one council member at one point in time had the authority to make this change, whether it was politically correct or not, I don't really know. I will fall back to what I think what Council Member Costa said, which is about exclusion, exclusionary policies, and I would really prefer that the word holiday is kept in there as well. So whether the name is a holiday Christmas parade, I would be fine with that, but I would not like to exclude the word holiday because that may be perceived by other religions as an exclusion of participation to the parade. And after all, the parade is paid with taxpayer dollars.
Councilmember Martiner, if I may clarify, a council member did not make the change. In discussion, a council member brought up the concern, and as staff, whether it was a council member or a community member that brought the concern to us, it doesn't matter. We go back and in our evaluation process continue to improve and make improvements on all of our programs. In that evaluation process, we decided to go ahead and move forward with the name change to be inclusive of everybody. So just for clarification,
Okay.
there was not a directive to do that.
It just seems to me that a decision like this, which has brought up and has had a lot of the public, interested in, I would expect that the city staff would bring this up to the council, for a decision of this sort to be made, and not just make the decision based on a member of the public or one council member. I would have expected that it would have been brought up to the council when it was changed at the time.
Councilmember Lingle. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm ready to make a motion when you're ready.
Okay. I guess, and I've had a lot of emails about it. I've had one person who was opposed to it. It's probably the same person that brought it up that was a council member a long time ago. And I thought, I kind of took Councilmember Lingle's approach. I asked a couple people what Christmas meant to them, kind of average people, and I think Santa Claus was the universal first answer, and we only allow one in the parade. So that must have some impact. And Christmas trees, and a couple people viewed it as a religious experience, but I think the word has become, as Easter is to an Easter egg hunt or Easter is to an Easter bunny, a generic descriptor of the season. However, I see what the folks to my left have to say, and I'm wondering if we couldn't do what we do frequently, which is compromise and call it the Christmas holiday parade, kind of wrap everybody up into it and get everything done.
Mr. Mayor, why don't you make that motion?
I would just be delighted. I move choice.
Mayor Lynn, I don't mean to interrupt. Can we, don't want to get into semantics, but can we add the word "and"? Because what you're saying, by saying Christmas holiday, that's making it one phrase, but by saying Christmas and holiday, or holiday and Christmas parade, you're focusing it on a more broad level. Does that make sense?
Okay, let's flip around. How about? Yeah.
May I?
No, I'm struggling to
may
get
I
this done
interject,
happily.
If I may.
Yes.
Actually, I think having it say Christmas holiday would probably be safer than saying Christmas and a holiday, because then you're differentiating between Christmas and holiday.
Okay. So I stay with my motion. We shall change the name to the Christmas
I'm having quizzical looks. The reason I'm saying that is because what I'm hearing is the discussion is it was a holiday parade, but it was a Christmas holiday parade. It's the holiday of Christmas that's being celebrated.
Yes.
If we separate the Christmas and holiday with an "and," we're then celebrating two things. We're celebrating Christmas and we're celebrating holidays.
I'm with you. No, probably not.
And safer about what? You say it's safer. Is that means that we are liable for something?
Okay, one more time, and then I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. City staff, I have a question. If somebody were to submit a float, for example, a Jewish community group that had the Star of David on it, for example, would that be allowed in the parade?
We have nothing in place that would not allow that in the parade. Currently, we have different churches that depict, for example, La Prisma Church depicts Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus on their float typically. And so it's up to what they define as the holiday in their float. As long as it's family friendly, we accept it.
So technically, we are celebrating more than the Christmas holiday within our Christmas parade, or we have the ability to do that. I'm just stating the obvious here, that we're celebrating all holidays that fall around December.
That's exactly correct.
Thank you.
Right. So if you say the Christmas holiday parade, you're only talking about one holiday. So we need to come up with a language that really says that all of them are being celebrated, correct? Not to be exclusive. And yes, we need to have the word Christmas there if the majority of the council wants to, right? And the majority of the public may too. But we're trying to come to an understanding here that we will have the word Christmas because it is important to the community, and that we'll make sure that we do not exclude, whether they're a minority group or not, it doesn't matter, but that we do not exclude other members of the community that do exercise this holiday in their own religion. So how do we do it? With the right language.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, sorry for interjecting again.
Welcome to the party.
The difficulty is, as we're continuing the discussion, we're starting to focus on promoting religion. Now we're promoting all religions. What about those that may not believe in religion? So maybe it's a Christmas and winter holiday parade. I don't know what, but my suggestion would be to come to a decision sooner than later so that we don't continue to provide a record that could not be of assistance later.
I'm going to stay with my original motion because I still feel like that the phrase Christmas holiday is all-inclusive, and it encompasses all those things that people choose to do during that holiday period, whether it be Santa Claus, a Christmas tree, or their personal religious belief, or the fact that they have no personal religious belief and they're just going to give a present to their friend. And so my motion will be that we change the name to the Children's Christmas Holiday Parade. And a second.
I will second that, but with do we want to maintain the Lompoc Valley Children's Christmas Holiday Parade?
We still have that in it?
No, it is. I mean, right now it's called the Lompoc Valley Children's Holiday Parade. Do we want to?
I stand corrected.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And I second it.
Lompoc Valley Children's Christmas Holiday Parade.
So just for the record, in the resolution, everywhere it says holiday, we're going to add the word Christmas before it.
Correct. Okay. Any further discussion on that? A moment for everyone to think about it and a drink of water.
Mr. Mayor, do we also want to include in the motion the encroachment permits, item number 2 and 3, or the number 3?
Yes.
Okay.
My motion was only to change the name and move forward with the rest of it.
Okay, so
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn. I would ask that, without putting too much more on the record, that we talk briefly about if there are any other semantic options we can think of that would give a better compromise. Because as that reads, I'm compelled to vote against it, although I'm not necessarily particularly against this idea, and that's getting me frustrated.
Okay, so as the chair, I recommend we take a 10-minute break, and we can all think about that and go to the restroom. And be just a minute for the city administrator to get back with us. And the attorney. We could just make them all crazy and start without them. offer a $1 reward to anyone that can find Laurel. Who wants to earn the $1? Wait, I hear the restroom door. Somebody's going to get the buck. Joanne's going for the $1.
Mr. Mayor, are we back on the record right now?
No. But I have my $1 out, so I'm ready to pay off. You trying to bid the deal up, Councilmember Starbuck?
Well, Mr. Mayor, even though we're not on the record, I'm going to make an announcement to the people that are here, in case you disappear before I get to make it later. There is a wonderful book available at the Lompoc Veterans Memorial Building. It's the history of the Lompoc Veterans Memorial Building. $35. It's a great history of that building, so if you have an opportunity to go over to the Veterans Hall and purchase it.
You do. Okay, coming back. I forgot what you told me that was a good idea.
During the break, I had a few folks mention that something a little safer may be the Lompoc Valley Children's Christmas Holiday Parade. No, Christmas Season Parade. God, wow, jeez, this is going to be tough. People are just going to call it the Christmas Parade regardless, I'm sure. So, yeah, Christmas season. So that way we're encompassing more than just a single day, per se. So if you're okay with that, that would be actually my motion. Did the other motion stand?
Yeah, I just amend my motion to include that. Everybody think that's...
I second it. I will second the motion.
All right, good. Christmas Season Parade. City Clerk, are you comfortable that you understand the motion? Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion from the council? And could we vote, please? Oh, I'm sorry. I looked back too fast. Councilmember Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will vote against it. I think this is still very exclusionary, but I have the right to vote whichever way, so I will just vote for. And I really think it's not an issue that this council should be spending so much time and working on it, since this city has plenty of other bigger issues that will take a lot of our legal counsel time. So to bring this up at this time, I think it's just really a poor move from this council. So I will be voting against it.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Seeing none, could we vote, please? And that passes 4-1. Okay, now moving on to item number 8 in new business, the Airport Commission structure. Aviation Transportation Administrator Richard Fernbaugh. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The recommendation before you this evening is to authorize the membership structure of the Airport Commission to be changed to include 2 additional non-voting commissioners whose primary residence is within the boundaries of the Lompoc Unified School District. At a council workshop held last December, council discussed adding 2 members from outside the city limits to the Airport Commission. At your meeting of February 22nd, the consensus of the council was that Councilmember Starbuck would discuss with the Airport Commission the addition of 2 members to the commission from outside the city limits. Councilmember Starbuck did do that at one of the commission meetings, and the foregoing was discussed. The Lompoc City Code currently authorizes the makeup of the Airport Commission to be 5 commissioners whose primary residence is within the city limits. But upon that, the Airport Commission recommends to the City Council that the makeup of the Airport Commission be expanded to include members from outside the city limits whose primary residence is within the boundaries of the Lompoc Unified School District. The Commission felt this would be more realistic in reflecting the representation of those local users of the airport and encourage more participation by airport patrons. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any question at this time for Mr. Fernbaugh? Councilmember Starbuck.
These are going to be at-large appointments, and these will be made by the Airport Commission, right, Mr. Fernbaugh?
That's up to
the Commission itself.
The Council.
Okay, I'd like to go ahead and...
Wait.
All right.
You can't. Not yet. Anyone else would like to speak at this time before I have oral communication? Seeing no lights, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this item at this time? Going once, going twice, sold. Come on back, Richard. You didn't get to sit very long. Okay, now coming back. Who would like to ask another question of Richard? I guess I would like to ask Richard, based on the discussion of the Airport Commission, was it their intent that they would appoint these two individuals or that the council would appoint these two individuals?
They didn't discuss them appointing it.
Their assumption was we would do it.
I assume since it's a change in the city code that we'd have to have a legal opinion on that.
Okay, well, I think my thought on it when we discussed it originally, because it was one of the things I remember discussing, was that it would be two additional at-large council appointments. Let's see. Let's go once around. Councilmember Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm fine with doing this and having the council do the appointment of two at-large.
Councilmember Costa.
I agree as well. I mean, of course, we're open to their suggestion for whom they think should apply and getting those applications into the city clerk, but that the city council would ultimately do the appointing.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah, I would concur with a lot of that, but I would actually maybe the leadership at the lowest level with the commission going ahead and presenting who they would like to select. They know who's going to qualify, who would be interested in taking those appointments, so I'd really like to have the commission's input on it.
Okay, Councilmember Lingle.
I have no opinion.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. I concur. I think they should be council appointments. I'm sure that the Airport Commission would be good at helping us find someone who would apply for that and voicing support for them. And I think it's all good things. We don't have a motion set out, do we, Joe? Or an actual...
The recommendation on the staff report can be a motion.
Okay. And with the inclusion of the fact that the appointment be made by the council?
You don't need to add that. That's automatic unless you wanted to make it different.
Okay. And...
coming back to you, or we'll bring back to you an ordinance
to
modify the code.
Okay, good. All right. So I guess at this point I move the staff report with the understanding that it would be a council appointment, and I'd be looking for a second.
Oh, sorry. A second.
And it's moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion at this time? And the understanding that this would be coming back to us with a text change for the city code. Any other discussion? Seeing none, can we vote, please? And that passes 5-0. Thank you, Richard, and thank the Commission for us. And the next one would be number 9, city consideration of the transfer of the general partner for the College Park Housing Associates, a California Limited Partnership, Community Development Program Manager, Dinah Lockhart.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Staff is recommending this evening that Council approve a request by the National Equity Fund to replace the Lompoc Housing Community Development Corporation as the general partner of the College Park Housing Associates Limited Partnership with People's Self-Help Housing. In 2008, City Council approved a request from the Lompoc Housing and Community Development Corporation for $159,000 in state home program income funds for the College Park Apartments project, a 35-unit affordable housing development located in the northeastern corner of G Street and College Avenue. The loan request was part of the permanent financing for the $14.2 million project. In addition to federal, state, and private financing, a significant portion of the project's financing came through low-income housing tax credit funds, a form of financing for affordable housing development. LHCDC had formed the limited partnership College Park Housing Associates, LP, in order to obtain the low-income housing tax credit award. The owners of College Park Apartments are actually the investors who joined the partnership. The National Equity Fund, or NEF, represents the interests of the investors to this project, which include banks and other corporate investors. Through this financing mechanism, LHCDC is not the owner of the project, but rather a partner in the limited partnership. In January 2011, the city was contacted by a representative of NEF. NEF indicated due to the LHCDC being unable to satisfactorily carry out the general partner obligations of management and reporting functions, NEF had brought in People's Self-Help Housing to provide day-to-day management of the project and on-site social services to residents. The NEF representative indicated to the city NEF was still in negotiations with LHCDC, and the city would be contacted in the near future as to the outcome of those negotiations. According to NEF, a possible outcome of those negotiations would be that the city consider a request by NEF to replace the general partner with People's Self-Help Housing. Founded in 1970, People's Self-Help Housing has developed affordable rental and ownership housing in San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. Their experience includes the development of over 1,100 self-help sweat equity homes and the acquisition and construction of over 1,250 affordable rental properties in 25 communities. Under the terms of the city's loan agreement with College Park Housing Associates, the limited partner, or NEF, may remove the general partner, or LHCDC, if the general partner fails to carry out its responsibilities under the loan agreement or under the limited partnership agreement upon prior written approval by the lender or the city. On August 26, 2011, the city was notified by NEF it had removed LHCDC as the general partner and had replaced it with Community Development Advocates, or CDA, an affiliate of NEF. CDA will be the interim general partner in order to address issues currently impacting the property, and CDA will be replaced by People's Self-Help Housing. NEF requested the city confirm the appointment of People's Self-Help Housing to assume the role of permanent general partner of College Park Housing Associates, LP. NEF also indicated that the city may advise the interim general partner, CDA, of any outstanding reporting or funding issues associated with the College Park project so that they may be addressed. Because the council did not have an opportunity to consider this item prior to the September 26, 2011 deadline, staff requested NEF provide an extension of the deadline to October 5, 2011, in order to allow council to consider this item at a public meeting on October 4, 2011. On September 22, 2011, NEF granted the time extension to October 5, 2011. As limited partner, NEF controls the majority interest in the College Park Housing Associates, LP, which owns the College Park Apartments. NEF's corporate mission is to provide investor financing to affordable housing projects and is committed to ensuring the financial stability and sustainability of the affordable housing properties that are a part of the investment portfolio. NEF's selection of People's Self-Help Housing, a reputable affordable housing provider in the region, to become general partner reflects NEF's intention to preserve that affordable housing asset and to provide quality housing and services to Lompoc families. NEF partners with People's Self-Help Housing in several other properties and has selected People's Self-Help Housing for its experience, familiarity with the market, superb reputation, and excellent management track record. That concludes my presentation. We also have pictures provided by People's Self-Help Housing of the G and College apartments today. And Jeanette Duncan, Executive Director of People's Self-Help Housing, is here tonight to answer any questions Council may have.
Jeanette, did you want to speak now? Thank you.
I didn't fill out one of those slips. Should I fill one?
Oh, you're a guest.
Anyway, I'm Jeanette Duncan. I'm the Executive Director of People's Self-Help Housing. And with me tonight I have several staff and a board member as well. Jose Flores, who lives here in Lompoc, is on our board of directors. John Fowler's here, who's from our finance department. And Al Ruiz on the corner over there works with all our property management functions. He's the inspector who, when people want to move in our units, he does the move-in inspection, and we try to be in every single apartment at least twice a year, every 6 months. So he can answer questions about how we operate our property management side. We were asked, and also Fred Lamont is here from the Housing Authority here in Lompoc. We consider him a partner too. Fred, you're in the back. We do operate, actually, we've developed over 1,250, but we own and manage now a total of about 1,300 affordable apartments. And part of the financing that we use involves low-income housing tax credits, where you do have to form a limited partnership, and the investors own 99% of the property. And the managing general partner, which is a nonprofit, is the managing general partner and has 1%. And I think we have about 17 of those partnerships now, so we have a lot of experience with managing tax credit properties. We were actually contacted in the fall of 2009 about College Park. The investors had gone, as they often do after a project is built. They go and they look at the tenant files and they look at the property. And they went and had concerns. So we were contacted in the late fall of 2009, and in February of 2010, we started doing the property management for College Park. So we've had a history there for about 18 months. Our specialty, of course, is not just managing properties, but dealing with all the compliance issues. And College Park has actually 6 sources of financing. They have State Department of Housing funds, they have some county home funds, they have the tax credit investor funds, they have funds from Citibank. It's a bond that was issued by the California Communities Authority, which is the debt limitation authority for the state. And then they had got a grant through Los Padres Bank, which is now Pacific Western Bank. And then they had funds from the city. So there are 6 funding sources that are involved with College Park. Each one has its own requirements, income eligibility. The income eligibility is critical because if you do not rent to people with the right incomes, the tax credit investors can lose their tax write-offs that year. So you have to be very careful with the tenant files. Also, the rents have to be correct. And you have to know the utility allowances for each jurisdiction. In Lompoc, since you supply electricity, the utility allowances are a little bit complicated. When we did start managing, we found the utility deposits had been incorrectly calculated, so we had to adjust the rents downward. We also were dealing with tenant files that would not have passed an audit, so we spent quite a few months straightening them out. We had to call every tenant in, completely redo all their files, their income certifications. And I think we've done a good job of that. We've been audited by the State Treasurer's Office. We've been audited by the State Bonding Authority. We've been audited by the county. And I met with the state last week, and they gave me a list of reports that were overdue or missing. And we're working through that list. your staff gave me another long list. So we're now starting to work through all these lists of outstanding reports. We feel the property's in compliance, but as the general partner, you have many, many reports that you have to submit to your funding sources, and they were not submitted. So we're now going back and reconstructing, and you will have all your reports as soon as we can get them compiled, including audits. There were audits of the College Park financial statements. So we're working through that. I told Dinah yesterday we're slogging our way through that long list because we have a list of about 7 reports and items the state wants. I think you have about 6. Isn't that right? About 6 or 7 reports. So we're getting those all caught up. And the investors, we've been working with them intensely during this time that we took over management. They have also been to the property and looked at the tenant files and looked at the units. We got a small grant from you in your CDBG allocation, and so we're operating an after-school program there, and we have 21 children daily attending, which is really good. And then CAC has a Head Start program operating out of the community space. So we have lots of youth activities. And also the on-site manager, we did hire a manager who lives there, and she's putting together tenant events. So I think we've done a good job of getting the property in shape. Al worked with us. We did have to, the first few months, we did find some illegal subletting and some things that were not acceptable. So some tenants left, and we have some new tenants there, good tenants. And we do routine inspections. We have our own maintenance crews. So I think College Park is in good shape. And Dinah, I don't know how to click that because you have multiple photos, right? You can click through. Okay. That's on the corner of G and College. So we've got it in good shape. The landscaping needed to really be addressed when we took over, and we've planted trees. And it's a very attractive development, and I think it's an addition to the neighborhood and will be long-term affordable housing maintained well for your community. So what's before you tonight is to just transfer the general partner's responsibility to us. And as the general partner, we have responsibility to the investors as well to all the lending sources that I mentioned, all 6. And of course, we will continue to shepherd it. The limited partnership goes for 55 years. It was built in 2008. So it's a long time commitment for our nonprofit, but we have many of these developments that we're committed to. And so our board of directors, over a year ago, were apprised that we might be asked to take over the general partner position. They wanted us to do a lot of due diligence, which we did do. And certainly prior to the actual transfer taking place, we have to have assurances from the investors that certain financial obligations will be met, such as funding the reserves, and they've made a commitment to that because the reserves were not funded. So, and that's the total amount that the investors will be committing is going to be several $100,000 to fund reserves that were not funded. So I think the property is going to be in very good financial shape. So I'll answer any other questions if you have them.
We'll start from the right. Councilmember Lingle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Don't know how else to do this, but just ask it outright.
Sure.
You talk about your organization having a lot of experience. Fortunately or unfortunately, LHCDC had a lot of experience as well. The city, we feel we've been duped by an organization that came to us with a lot of experience. So the question I have for you, you have approximately, looks like 2,300 pieces of property or units out there in 25 communities. Are any of these properties not in compliance at this current time?
No, and 1,100 of those are home ownership units where we don't own the property anymore. A family has built their own home through our program. So what we actually are responsible for is closer to about 1,350 units. Okay. And of course, every one of those has compliance requirements. They're all in compliance.
All 100%
all
compliant.
100%.
So the next question I'd have was for Ms. Lockhart. Has either NEF, Santa Barbara County, or the city done the due diligence to confirm that there are no non-compliance issues?
Councilman Lingle, no, we have not gone to each of the communities, to each of the lenders of People's Self-Help Housing to confirm essentially the testimony you've received this evening. So no, we have not. However, I did get a letter from the City of Santa Barbara basically recognizing People's Self-Help as being in compliance with the City of Santa Barbara's programming. But certainly, we can certainly confirm what Mrs. Duncan has said this evening.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Not that I don't trust you.
And I did want to say we're audited. Our organization is audited. Our audits are shared freely. Our audit that was just completed June 30th of this year is available. All our funding sources ask for it, and we supply audits.
How often are you audited?
Well, we are audited practically every month, because we have teams of auditors who come in. We have some HUD properties that we got HUD financing for, so we have Moss Levy in Santa Maria who audits those properties. We have an audit firm out of San Francisco that audits our corporate operations once a year, and then we have multiple tax credit properties that have to have an audit every year. We have an audit firm out of Sacramento. So we have auditors in our office almost monthly because they come in to do pre-audit work and then they come in to do the final audit work. Okay, so we're audited a lot. We, as a matter of fact, we had to think we're expanding our office. We need to build a little room for all the auditors to come so that, you know, they take space. They put their books and their computers everywhere. So I'll answer any other questions that you might have.
Councilmember Starbuck.
Mrs. Duncan, I just wanted to tell you that thank you guys for giving us the extension on time until council could convene. I wanted to let the public and everybody here know that it was very important to us that this be brought out public. You did not have to include us. This could have been done without us, so thank you.
You're welcome. Well, we believe in transparency, and I think we did meet with city staff when we first were asked to come to College Park, and tried to tell them who we were, introduce ourselves, and try to do a good job. It is sad what has happened with LHCDC, and we try our best with what we do.
Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. I also want to say thank you to Mrs. Duncan for coming. I think sad is definitely an understatement. Unfortunately, more like travesty. Many other words come to mind, but I really wanted to say thank you very much for attending and being so forthright with the information. You already did answer one of my questions, and I was curious if there was a board member from Lompoc, but Jose Lopez it sounds like, so I appreciate you bringing him here.
Jose Flores.
Oh, Jose Flores? Sorry, I didn't hear that. Let me write that down here. And I think that's wonderful. I think, getting local involvement within your organization is great. Some local board members, and so I would, be very great. It'd be great to see even more folks from our community on that board as well. But I do value your position, and thank you for coming. The one question I did have, is it true that there's a now renting sign on those?
Yes, we have a couple of vacancies, and so we are taking applications for those vacancies right now.
And were some of those vacancies due to the folks who were not following the rules, essentially, or
I have to ask Al. He knows all.
Please.
Believe it or not, Al knows all the tenants of 1,250 or 1,300 units. Even who has a teenager who plays drums, he can tell you. He knows. The current vacancies, did the people leave because we asked them to leave?
Yes.
Okay.
And there were subletting.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Al Ruiz. Yes, there were subletting. When we do inspections, we normally see if we see extra people and stuff, and we look at the files, who is supposed to be there or not. And when we see that, we confront them, and then they tell us. So we have to ask them to leave.
Okay, I wanted to just confirm, thank you for that information. I wanted to confirm that it wasn't the qualifications that were changing, it was somebody who wasn't following the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, one of the compliance issues is income the incomes have to be correct. And so if they tell us there are 4 people in the household, and we verify all the incomes of 4 people or a parent and children, then suddenly if you have 5 people or 6 people there, then the incomes are not correct, and we're out of compliance. So we give them time to correct the deficiencies. We serve them a notice. They have time. But if they don't adhere, then often they choose to leave rather than obey the rules.
When you say sublet, that means they brought in a roommate generally?
Sometimes numerous.
Okay. I didn't mean like
and
they
we
were
also
renting
do,
it to
we do
someone else.
criminal background checks on all our tenants prior to approving. And recently, we discovered someone had been released from prison and had moved in, and we confronted the woman who brought the person in. And we have to play the rules fair for everybody. We can't let one exception. So,
Councilman Martner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make, before I ask you a couple of questions, I would like to make a correction on the staff report. You have something that is not factual. On page 3 of 4, there is a statement that it says because the council did not have the opportunity to consider this item prior to the September 26th, the council requested. It was a council action to request the extension. So it wasn't something that the council didn't have the opportunity. The council requested the extension. And I'd like to thank you very much for giving us the extension, even though you could have proceeded without listening to us. And I'm sure that you're very sensitive how this council, or at least I as a council member, am very sensitive to what has happened in this community regarding LHCDC and their lack of compliance for many years. You mentioned that you took over the property in fall 2009, so that's about a year.
February of 2010 is when we became the official property manager. February
Since
of 2010.
when did you start working on the property?
In the fall of 2009, we were aware of the need to take over property management, but we didn't have files, we didn't have access.
So in February 2010?
Yes.
Okay, so it's been over a year?
Yes, about 18 months.
So according to HUD regulations, every year you have to file a report where you certainly offer your financial information, but also you file a report regarding your compliance in affordability covenants. So I assume that the federal government is giving any organization, whether it is People Self-Help or LHCDC or Santa Barbara Housing, they give them about a year to comply with this regulation. You have been in place for more than a year. Are you compliant in the affordability covenant?
The property management side is in compliance. I can guarantee you that. What was not in compliance was the general partner's responsibility to file reports and turn them in to the city. It is the general partner of one of these partnerships who has the responsibility to submit reports to all the lenders. That's an owner's responsibility. They represent the owner. We represented the property management side. So we knew that for the investor side of things, that the tenants had the right incomes, that the rents were correct, we were collecting, and those were in compliance. But we could not guarantee, our authority doesn't go to the owner. The owner has to file these compliance reports with the city, and that's what LHCDC was not doing. It was their responsibility as the managing general partner for the owner to submit those reports.
So even though you were under the management per se, you were put in place as the management, you gave this information to LHCDC, and LHCDC chose not to file a report?
Correct.
And what did the city do about it?
I believe they sent lots of reports right after requests.
Okay.
Right after we took over College Park, as a matter of fact, someone came to College Park's office because it had never been opened. They had never opened the office at College Park when we took over in February. There was no furniture in the office, nothing. Someone came, I don't know if it was a postman or someone from the city, and presented us kind of a notice that there was a report due and loan interest due. And we sent that to LHCDC and asked them to take care of it, because at that point we were just dealing with day-to-day property management operations. And to my knowledge, they did not take care of it.
So you basically had all the paperwork in place, per se, the affordability covenants, the maintenance, the financial audits, or the financial statements, and this was sent to this organization, and this organization decided to sit on it for whatever reason.
I have no idea why or what.
And this that happened, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it got, because our responsibility was to first, on the part of the investors, ensure that people had the right incomes that were living there and that the files would stand up in an audit. That was our very first responsibility. Our second responsibility was to also make sure that any outstanding bills, there were vendors that had not been paid, a landscaper had not been paid for a long period of time. And we had to contact all the people, the creditors of College Park, to inform them that we were managing and we would attempt to pay them off, which we've been able to do over the 18 months.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'd like to thank you for being so diligent in those specific requirements that we're all very sensitive about, because they have been actually being violated for not just in that property but in other properties in this city. I mean, LHCDC has other properties that they have managed in the city, and they are under the same situation back when you were in whatever, fall 2009 or thereabouts, when this investment asked you to step in. So it was the investment partnership that asked you to step in. It was not LHCDC that asked you, please come and help us and manage for us.
Well, I think the investors advised them they needed to do that. It was the investors' pressure on LHCDC that we were brought in.
Okay, so because if I recall, and again my memory is a little vague on this, but if I recall, LHCDC may have come to us on December 2009 saying something to the fact that they were going to have people self-help housing come in and help them, and that they have asked for your help. But really, they were not asking for your help. The investors were pressuring LHCDC.
I suppose you could put it that way.
Thank you.
But I think the main thing for you to know and to have assurance is that we are going to try to bring all these reports that haven't been submitted up to date. We promised that to the state. It's a lot of work. We still have a long way to go to determine exactly what still has to be submitted, but we got a long laundry list from the state last week. And since we do this automatically, since we have tax credit properties, it will be fairly simple for us to file these reports. Some of them are filed online. The one at the California Debt Limitation Authority, that's an online report that you submit annually. And we have other properties that we submit for. So, our finance department will be able to soon get all those reports up to date.
When it clearly looks that you take this reporting very seriously,
yes,
right?
Very
and I am amazed to see that here we have one organization that takes this reporting very seriously, and we have dealt with another organization for over 10 years in the city that did not take that reporting very seriously. So it's very interesting to see the contrast and how slow our city has been in waking up to the problem.
The one thing, and I did discuss this with your city attorney, the one advantage you have with College Park, it is a partnership.
Yes.
You have investors who have a large stake. So naturally, their financial interest is quite huge, and the penalties that they could have if things aren't compliant are equally huge, because they have to file tax returns every year for their corporate investors, and if there's a mistake, that corporate investor that year would have huge penalties to IRS.
But remember that we, as a city that has administered HUD monies, we do have an obligation as well, and if we do not fulfill those compliances, we have to return those monies to the feds. So as far as investment, I think it behooves the city to be responsible in their obligations of of making sure that all of these properties are compliant, because otherwise we have to return the money. So we need to protect our investment just as much as your general partnership is protecting their investment.
Right.
Thank you.
So are there other questions? Could I help you on others?
I get the last shot always.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is just a recap because we spoke yesterday, I think, about some issues that have been raised in the community, and I just would like you to recap those two and recap our discussion for the public. And the first one was that LHCDC had invested some money in some portion of this, I believe in the Citibank note, and if you would address the fact that that went away.
Well, the way the financing for this particular development was put together, the nonprofit who is going to apply for tax credits and who is going to have limited partners involved, they sign a contractual agreement, and that contractual agreement lays out the responsibilities of the nonprofit. So those contractual obligations were met as far as any financial obligation that they had to the investors, that was met. As far as the investors' position at this point in time, they have gone on the record to say that not all of the contractual obligations that LHCDC had as a managing general partner were met, and that since things like the reserves were not funded, they are stepping up to provide funds to do that.
And the other subject we discussed was that as the developer of the project, in the beginning, LHCDC was entitled to some development fees, which were then offset by other things, and perhaps you could discuss that.
Well, we weren't party to the negotiations that went on between LHCDC and
but just in a general sense, describe how that
but
can
usually it's a contractual arrangement, the arrangement between the investor and the developer over any fees that they might get for the project. My understanding is that they did not meet their contractual obligations to the investors.
The LHCDC
Right.
did not meet their obligations,
Right.
correct?
So there would be no further payment to LHCDC. That's my understanding.
Okay. And you're comfortable with that, and that's normal and customary in business of this type?
That I have not seen their agreement, but I know that that's usually the way it works. And John's a CPA here, Fred's a CPA in the back. They can pretty much tell you that in these partnership agreements, it's airtight for performance. And if performance isn't met on the part of the general partner, a lot of the financing that they might have been entitled to down the line disappears.
Okay. And with regard to the time period when, from February forward, when you've operated the facility, do you have the ability to basically backfile the reports that were not filed as a result of?
That's what we're trying to do. Yes, we'll try our best to get that done. We feel pretty confident we can do the majority of them. I can't speak for everything because we still don't know if there's something missing that we don't know about. But we've notified, there are 6 lenders involved, and all 6 have been notified. And for example, the County of Santa Barbara sent us a list of what they're missing. The state, when I met with them last week, we went through a list, and they subsequently emailed me a comprehensive list of what they're missing. Citibank is going through their own due diligence at this point. So every single lender is telling us what it is they need.
And you feel comfortable that the investor partners are going to put in the necessary amount of money to make you whole at the beginning of this so that you don't inherit a problem, I'm sure?
Absolutely, and all our time, I have to tell you, is donated because we've gone the extra mile for this property to make sure it's in good shape, way beyond the property management responsibilities.
Yeah. Well, I'm familiar with the problems that the property had before you folks came on board, and you've done a great job of
straightening it out and cleaning it up, and I don't envy you in the paperwork. Do you want to go to public comment, or you want to have one more?
One little question.
Okay, absolutely. Councilmember Martiner.
Thank you. I have a question actually to our legal counsel. You did mention that one of your partners was Pacific Western Bank.
Yes.
Is that the same bank that is suing the city of Lompoc over the other 6 properties?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
They let me explain that particular loan. It's actually a grant, but it's secured by a regulatory agreement. It was Los Padres Bank that applied to the Federal Home Loan Bank Board for a grant in the amount of $210,000 for College Park. And because Pacific Western took over Los Padres Bank, they're responsible for the monitoring of that regulatory agreement. And they have signed off already on us assuming that responsibility.
Just for your information, Pacific Western Bank is suing LHCDC, the county, and the city of Lompoc over 6 properties, and they have appointed a receiver. And out of curiosity, you are part of this, or you will be a partner to this bank that is appointing a receiver on 6 other low-income housing properties in the city of Lompoc. Do you have any idea whether you are going to be asked, your organization is going to be asked to manage these other 6 properties after the receiver finds out what's going on there?
I have no idea that might occur. It's up to them.
Are you aware of this situation?
Yes.
You are aware that a receiver has been appointed to 6 other properties in the city of Lompoc?
Yes, and the county has asked us to contact Pacific Western.
Okay, the county has asked you to contact Pacific Western regarding what? Or I don't know if you can share that information.
You want to share that information?
That's okay. You don't need to answer. You don't need to answer. Thank you.
Okay, and we now would take public comment. Is anyone that would like to speak on this item?
Joyce Howerton, Mayor, City Council. It's nice to have the opportunity to get up here and say something nice and supportive. And I just want to say that prior to People Self-Help Housing taking over the College Park housing, I used to get phone calls from people saying, I'm living in this apartment complex and there's drug deals going on, there's gang activities going on, there's, in one case there's a predator of children here, what do we do? And each time I would refer them to LHCDC, and the calls came. And I have to say, since People Self-Help Housing has taken over, I have not gotten a single call, so I appreciate it. I appreciate the work they do. They have a stellar reputation. Their projects are some of the best. We just recently did a farm tour in Santa Maria, and their properties was one that we chose to go by and show people because people have a quality of life in their projects. And when projects, God, that's an old term, in their housing. I recently went by the College Park apartments just because I was curious how they look now, because I remember how it used to look, and they're really nice. When you walk through, you know that people have, a quality of life, a good quality of life, and most importantly, it has a safe feel, and it didn't always have that. We're fortunate in this community. There are 3 that I can think of, agencies that do incredible work. People Self-Help Housing, the Housing Authority of Santa Barbara County, and Good Samaritan. They all run very good, solid projects. And this is a perfect example of where somebody can come in, take over a project, and really make it something that we can all be proud of and a place where everybody would want to live. So, they have an awesome board, a great staff, and a great reputation, and I don't think we will see any of the type of problems that you've had to deal with. And I'm just really glad they're there because personally I got really tired of the phone calls. Thank you.
Next.
Carol Benham, Lompoc resident. I obviously very much support the transfer of this limited general partnership from LHCDC to People's Self-Help Housing. I know they've done a good job since 2010. Because I've talked to you earlier about the need for clear policies and procedures, I'll just add, I hope whatever has to be signed with People's Self-Help Housing is very clear. All the regulatory agreements covering all the bases, and I want to thank Jeanette Duncan. I've talked to you on the phone a couple times, never met you. Hi. For explaining far better than I ever could how important all those compliance issues are. Thank you. I won't even try. That was great. But this is a really good time. I also want to thank Ms. Duncan for explaining what was out of compliance, because I do want to share with you that, you know, if you read the staff report, you really would not know, unless you knew all the issues, how out of compliance this project was. I referenced that a little bit more, and so did Councilmember Martner. You shouldn't have to do a thesis in order to figure out what is in compliance and what isn't. And I wanted to point out that this is the loan agreement between College Park, City of Lompoc. Exhibit F, regulatory requirements state as clearly as it could state it that the income levels and qualifications must be certified prior to initial occupancy, recertified annually by the owner. That was LHCDC. That never happened, ever. So here's another violation, non-compliance, that I'm not really sure the council ever knew about. I found this on the web, regulatory agreement. And it seems like a good time, since I'm bringing some facts forward, to tell you that this is on the web. This is the latest Lompoc Redevelopment Agency residential covenants. Pulled it off the web, dated December 2010. There's everything that's highlighted in yellow is non-compliant. The red dot means it was never certified, ever. Even after it was, after construction, it was never certified because no data was ever submitted. There's the next page. Everything out of compliance. See the red dot? That's Portobello Apartments. Completed construction, 2007, never certified. Portobello actually got to be refinanced for $675,000, and it was non-compliant. Every single one of those is LHCDC. Every LHCDC property on this list is non-compliant. The only non-compliant properties are LHCDC. I don't, just telling facts. I would like to reiterate something that Ms. Councilmember Martner said. The first action when the council said no to LHCDC occurred in May 2010. And that occurred with Mr. Lingle, Ms. Martner, Andrew J. and Mike Szymanski. They did take appropriate action May 2010. I also want to tell you that here is the redevelopment housing loan covenants for October, presented in October 2009. It was presented at the request of Ms. Martner and Ms. Rouget. It was submitted with the staff report that didn't discuss any non-compliance at all. You had to go through the attachments to find it. Once again, every LHCDC property non-compliant, only LHCD properties non-compliant. Last compliance report for Portobello, 2005, before it was even finished being built. Every other LHCDC property had never submitted any data since April 2007. If HUD wanted to, it could come in here tomorrow and make the city pay back the money for that period of time that all these housing units weren't in compliance. I'm offering you that just to again support my urge, my request that you please put in a policy, a clear written policy so everyone knows what the regulatory agreements are. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Ms. Bennett, you reported that there was a property that was given a loan for $600,000.
The Portobello Apartments, correct.
When was that loan given? What date?
It was given in January 2008.
January 2008.
It was a refinance. It was a refinance. They pulled that equity.
$600,000 that was given to Portobello Housing that had never been compliant.
It wasn't compliant with the affordability requirements.
And the city council approved it?
I'm sorry. I don't want to mislead you. That was actually given by the county.
Oh, okay.
I probably shouldn't have said that.
Okay.
But it's both the city and the county, as I've said, that didn't ask this organization to follow the clear legal requirements that every other organization was asked to follow.
Okay, so I guess I would like to ask the staff, has the city council given loans to LHCDC when the properties were non-compliant?
I would have to research specific properties, but it is certainly possible, yes.
Could you research it and bring it back to the council at the next meeting, please? Because I think the public deserves to know that city councils have voted on funding this organization while they were totally in non-compliance. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Jeanette, could you come back up for a moment, please? Would you say that having reviewed all of the various requirements for the feds, the state, the 29 loan programs, and the city, that you have a good understanding of what needs to be done?
Absolutely.
And do you foresee any difficulty with being compliant with the city requirements along with those many others?
No.
And is this project structured in such a way that it's completely different from other projects that you administer, so that it would cause you some concern about managing this because it's completely different from others, or is it more similar to others?
It's very similar.
Okay.
Similar.
And the funding structure in this, even though it's multi-layered, is not anything you haven't dealt with before?
No. Most of our projects have at least 6, if not 7 or 8 funding sources, so that's not unique.
Okay. Just in a general sense, could you comment on how far off the rents were that were being collected? Was it a substantial amount, or I saw an eyebrow go up?
I don't want to be quoted. It could have been $30 a month or $40 a month. I can find that out for you.
No, I'm just, it wasn't hundreds of dollars then, so.
No, but.
Okay. It's wrong.
But times 35 units per month, yeah. It was still a significant drop in expectations for rent proceeds.
And in speaking from a cash flow standpoint, are you comfortable that the cash flow from this with the adjusted rents is adequate to manage the project so you don't end up upside down in it?
No, and the housing authorities are working with us to get us some project-based Section 8, so that will substantially improve the cash flow.
And that would be a better rental rate? Is that what you would have?
That would, yes, it would.
But it wouldn't violate the various covenants for low-income housing?
And it would help some of the residents that are there too, because even the tax credit rents are sometimes pretty high for them to pay, so it will help them get additional subsidies. So it'll be a good thing for the project.
No losers.
And we have to thank the Housing Authority. They've been strong partners with us on this. So.
Is there anything else you'd like to comment on?
No.
Okay, thank you.
We feel badly that, things have got to this point, but whatever we can do in a partnership with the city, we said, our board, I think Jose said, we'll try to help you whatever we can.
Appreciate that. Any other council members have a question with regard to this? Or a statement? Councilmember Lingle. Sorry, got there first.
Oh, I was going to make a motion, but if there's a question or comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Marilyn. I just had a few quick statements. This may not be the most popular thing to say, but I did want to give a piece of credit to LHCDC for two things, and that's actually coming up with the idea and building out the project. So, in the very beginnings, this was a good idea, and I think that, the credit is due in that instance. I know sometimes it's very easy to blame, but I do want to give a small amount of credit for the very beginnings of this project. Now, I want to say thank you so much for coming and allowing the City Council to discuss this. I know that NEF has a huge capital investment, but I just wanted to state that it was very important for us to discuss this because what we're dealing with is the human capital and the social capital side, and I know you understand that, so I just want to say thank you again for doing that. And the last thing I wanted to mention is earlier on this year, the lucky thing about me being my age is I kind of wander into places and nobody thinks I'm in a position of authority whatsoever, so I kind of get to find out the fun stuff. So I went in to this complex and, was just kind of seeing how it was run and how things were going, and I did get some wonderful statements that things had improved quite vastly from those calls that Ms. Howerton recalled as well. They did say that there was still some lingering issues, but I'm very confident from what it sounds like that every 6 months, sometimes these things will have to be vetted out as we go. So I just wanted to say that I do see that improvement, and I do appreciate that. I was going to make the motion, but Councilmember Lingle, if you wanted to do that. Okay. I move that the Council approve a request by the National Equity Fund to replace the Lompoc Housing Community Development Corporation as the general partner for the College Park Housing Associates Limited Partnership with People's Self-Help Housing.
So move.
Or seconded, yes. Okay, and is there any other discussion or questions at this time? And seeing none, could we vote, please? And that passes 5-0. Thank you for all of you for coming and spending your time with us. We really appreciate it. And written communications. Nope. Oral communications. Last opportunity for someone in the audience to address the council. Come on down.
Hi, Brian Cole. I just wanted to thank all of you because now, as you know, I have a vested interest in the downtown area specifically, and I know it's late, I'll just keep it brief. But I just want to thank all of you for all of your efforts ongoing as it is right now, that finally things are starting to turn around and go in a very positive direction. And I want to encourage you to, from my perspective, to focus on that theater. If we can get a downtown theater down there, downtown revitalization is just a breath away as far as I'm concerned. I've seen it in other communities by example. So I just would encourage you to consider that, and not to consider it from a perspective of how much money it's going to take. We have so many people out there that are willing to jump in and do things voluntarily and to get it done, make it happen. I mean, I'm looking forward to whatever the next 2, 4 months or 6 months now. There's actually something to look forward to now. So I want to thank you. I want to also compliment and thank Carol Benham and Joyce Howerton and Jane Martinez and probably numerous other people too for stepping up and doing things on their own without pay necessarily, but just taking an interest in their own community and getting things happening, not waiting for somebody to ask them to do it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and appreciate what you do for downtown. Is there anyone else who would like to speak at this time? Seeing no one, will come back to council for redevelopment agency requests, comments, and reports. And we'll start from the left.
I would like to make an agenda item request. And the agenda item request is to have the staff bring a draft or a preliminary report on establishing a policy on the issues that we just have spoken about. I really would like to see the staff put a document in place that will address what happens when any organization is in non-compliance and what are the specific steps that the city must take to make them become compliant. So that is my agenda item request, and I certainly need 2 other votes to make it happen.
I'll second that.
I'll be third.
Can I add, is there any way to add that in that staff report we actually get some general background information about LHCDC and kind of what got us to this point? Because I think the public, you know, they keep asking about information about LHCDC. Can we roll those two kind of into one, or is that a separate request?
Well, okay, so I guess the first part of the policy draft would have to be a case study, or, you know, here is what happened. And here we're proposing a policy that will ensure, or that will make some steps that some of those issues will be avoided in the future. So it could be an introduction, some background history information on the city of Lompoc with the specific case studies which may address LHCDC, or if there is, I mean, let's not be just exclusive to LHCDC. If there is any other organizations that also have gone through this non-compliance issue and the city has done nothing about it. So I think the city staff has the responsibility to generate a history on this issue and then come up with a draft with a policy with the specific steps that will attempt to correct what happened in that case study. So I think it's a good idea. And I think this agenda item needs some deadline as far as when it needs to come up to the council. And I don't know how the agenda, you know, is so full for the next whatever month or so, but I certainly don't want this to be sitting there and come back to us in 6 months. I think it needs to come back in the next couple of months, because we are going through this process. Here we have a new organization that is taking on responsibilities. We will have other organizations that will be coming in and taking more responsibilities. We need to have the policy in place that will be very clear, that will state what the requirements are for this organization and what is the city's responsibilities to make them comply with the regulations and the contracts that we write. So 2 months, I would say, is the maximum that I would like to see that agenda item come back to the council in less than 2 months.
City Administrator, is that acceptable?
Yes, and so in less than 2 months would be December.
Okay. I need to, with regard to Councilmember Costa's request, I need to ask the city attorney, because we have ongoing legal issues with LHCDC, if that would present any problems for us. If we took one parcel, for instance, and used that as a case study, would that cause us any grief with regard to all of our various ongoing things?
If all we're doing is being factual about what happened, I don't see that as creating any problem.
If you're happy, I'm happy. Councilmember Costa.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you, Councilmember Martiner. You know, and again, my request would be that staff, you know, try to, as hard as it is sometimes, to be very self-reflective and be very critical of what we did wrong and what we can do better in the future. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Martin, did you have anything else to report?
Yes, I did attend the NCPA annual conference in Napa at the request of Councilmember Lingle. There is nothing to report on that as far as, you know, additional funds. It was just it was a commission meeting that was after a one-day conference regarding the municipal power.
And was that kind of a look into the future, if you will? You know, where we're going next year?
To some extent, with all the challenges associated with renewable energy sources and so forth.
Okay. Councilmember Costa? San Francisco.
Thank you, Marilyn. I reported when I was in San Francisco that I'd be in San Francisco for the League of California Cities annual conference, but I was there, and that was, of course, at city cost. But I guess what I can report is I was able to make some really great contacts and did a lot of networking. A lot of these sessions were very informational, some of it actually about downtown, which is really exciting, and I'd love to share with you about some of the stuff we can do to get us prepared for, you know, a boom, hopefully, in downtown pretty soon. So I saw a lot of value in it, but I don't like San Francisco. That's about it. Thank you.
There are too many people. Councilmember Starbuck.
Yeah, real quick before we run off to closed session again here, I just want to say that the very successful Leadership Lompoc Valley banquet that I attended and a very successful Vets Building birthday, I didn't want to steal your thunder on that, and I actually had a good time serving chicken with gloves on at the EDA luncheon, so thanks for that opportunity, and look forward to it next year.
Councilmember Lingle.
Well, thank you. Councilmember Starbuck did steal my thunder, but that's okay. Yeah. Yes. On Saturday evening, the Lompoc Veterans Building celebrated its 75th anniversary, and it was just a fantastic event. We had over 200 community members participate. It was a wonderful event. We had a wonderful speaker, Colonel Bolts from the Vandenberg Air Force Base. And as I started mentioning before, I don't know if it was on television, but for the viewers out there, there's a wonderful history book available. $35 that was put together on the history of the Lompoc Veterans Memorial Building. It is put together by one of our local veterans and member of the Rehabilitation Committee, Mr. Frank Grube. These are all signed copies by Mr. Grube. You can contact him or just go over to the Veterans Memorial Building and get it. It's a very, very nice piece of work. The other thing is I also attended the EDA luncheon, and I was very impressed with the number of long-time dedicated employees we have. We had people with 25, 30 years of dedication to this community, or to this city, and I want to thank them all again for that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And if you don't want to buy the book, I bought one and donated it to the library, so you can go over there and check it out and read it too. But all the dollars for buying the book, if you have to own one, and I have one also, goes to help with the rehabilitation. I also attended the League of Cities function in San Francisco, and I can tell you that if you think things are expensive here, a small Snickers bar in the hotel is $4.25. I didn't buy it. I think the most valuable workshops that I attended, and we had a number of them, were number one, which was, I think it was called Got Nightlife, and it talked about the challenges of improving nightlife in your downtown area while maintaining the quality of life, if you will. And I was particularly interested in the city of Livermore, who is somewhat similar to us and has undertaken that successfully with some good planning. And also I was glad we're not the city of San Jose, where they have 7,000 people that come downtown every night. The other one that I thought was kind of interesting was kind of looking at technology going out into the future, and what are the changes that you should be thinking about within your city. And the parking was crazy expensive. Yeah, that's for sure. And the general session, we voted on a couple of things, but they were not earth-shaking. One, I shouldn't say that. One was an effort by the League of Cities to work toward eliminating bullying in schools. And that was kind of important to me because my wife's and our godson took his own life in high school as a result of being bullied, and his parents have dedicated their lives since that time towards solving that. So I think that was a very important stand on behalf of the league. And we also, as a league, voted to ask Sacramento to be somewhat open and have half a Brown Act and actually let the public know what they were doing rather than passing things that no one had ever been able to read. I don't know how far we'll get with that, but it would surely make a better world, yes.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. Really quickly, what I forgot to mention is, and that's what you're getting into now, is that in this conference, and this is more for council members, it really makes you realize that City of Lompoc politics does not occur in a vacuum, that you're really affected by what happens on higher levels, especially on the state level. So another big thing that they focused on is more transparency in Sacramento. There was one decision made, I don't know what they say, I was at midnight during one of their sessions when nobody was there, and of course nobody's watching, and it actually took away VLF, vehicle license funds, from city coffers and replaced it into a state grant program that would go to public safety. So essentially what it's doing is it's saying you don't get to spend the money the way you want to, you can only use it if you get these grants for public safety. And so again, that's a raiding of the city's coffers, which is prohibited by Proposition 22 that was recently passed. But because it was done at midnight, it just passed like that with approval and an agreement. So they actually, the League of California Cities is filing a lawsuit against the state for that decision. So keeping us all involved on politics above the city level, I think, is very key, and I like to see more of that. I also wanted to let city staff and the public know that if you're interested in actually what we did learn at the League of California Cities Conference, if you Google League of California Cities Annual Conference, there's a web page, there's a tab called Education, and then on the left-hand side it says Handouts. You click on Handouts, and it gives you every single session that we could have attended, and either the handout that was given or the slides that were presented. So if you're curious what we learned or what we looked into, you can find every session information on there. Just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think the other thing that was absolutely valuable is being able to talk to people from other cities and finding out how they were solving problems, because a lot of the problems we have are not unique. So it was a great, great occasion, a lot of learning, and about 25 pages of notes. Anything else? Nope. Okay. We are adjourned to recess to close session. If you want to hear